So it is a great honor and a pleasure this night to have Professor Antoine Barbari, who is one of the very elegant stars in nephrology, in medicine, in Arab world. I like his style in presentation because he is not a regular teacher or professor. He is always carrying other aspects of medicine, and he is really a philosopher. So Professor Antoine Barbari shared his research activities in many issues, as you see, and this is the affiliation history from Lebanese American University Medical Center, Rafik Hariri University Hospital Beirut. So we like Beirut and we love Professor Antoine Barbari. And this is from Scopus Index. This is, he has 51 Scopus documents that were cited for more than 560 times with H index 13. And he has many areas of research. And I like this case, although it's case report, but I like it to treat resistant membranous JN with the after failure of rituximab by bortezomib. So I like it, although it is case report, but it carries a very interesting message for us. He also, Professor Antoine Barbari, shared us in the SCNT, Egyptian Society of Nephrology and Transplantation lectures for these lectures. And the last presentation was very nice. I like it because it carries a big philosophy about subconscious mind, gut microbiota, and our state of health. It was very fantastic video for more than 1 hour and 45 minutes. Today, we have also our great star in nephrology in Egypt and in Arab world, Professor Muhammad Sobh, with this very fascinating research activities for more than 170 publications, cited more than 2,700 with H index 28. And he harvested all the national, international awards in the nephrology research. And he's also our professor and leader in nephrology. So I think this night, with the catastrophic COVID that affects all over, all countries, all continents are affected by COVID-19, and the problem of immunity and how to boost immunity, I think it is very, very interesting and hot topic. And I'm sure that Professor Antoine Barbari is the best to speak about this issue, and we will learn this night from his philosophy and from medicine, and we are waiting, and I think it is expected, and it will be a very hot night. Professor Barbari. I'm going to stop the chair from my side to allow you to share your slides.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Hassan, for this always kind. You humble me with your introduction. And I want to first, one comment regarding the membranous nephropathy. I just reviewed with glomerular disease from the journal. They asked me to review another case report of membranous nephropathy refractory to all kind of therapy, where they use bortezomib, which is a proteasome inhibitor, with a great success in the reduction of the proteinuria and the improvement in kidney function. So I think more and more we'll be hearing with the role of bortezomib in the treatment of refractory membranous nephropathy, autoimmune membranous nephropathy.
Very exciting issue.
Today, I'll be talking about something I think it's of great interest for all of us, and with a lot of question mark about how we can boost our immunity in such a stressful time, as you have mentioned, with the time of the era of the pandemic, the corona pandemics, where we hear a lot of, publications about the different treatment, the different medication. Now we're talking about the vaccine. Well, just a paper came out from the WHO looking at all the kind of therapy, from remdesivir to interferon and it seems that there is no really effective therapeutic, at least chemical way to treat for the time being, apart from what you have mentioned the other day with the solimedrol and the soluble therapy in our patient. This is the only thing we have so far in terms of maybe a response and changing outcome. So today I'm going to be talking about how we can boost our immunity. The outline of my talk, we need to understand first how, as a human being, who we are, how we function. This body, mind, soul, I always talk about it because I think it's crucial for us to understand how we function. Quite often, doctors, we are more geared toward treating our patient with chemistry, and we'll see that the issue is not always chemistry, there is something else. We are energetic. We are energetic entities. The second point I will address it is where is the origin of the stress, where it's coming from. And I will use the example of what's going on today with the pandemics, showing you that the domestication process is the origin where the stress starts. Then I will address the issue, what is the relationship between stress and immunity? Does stress really affect immunity? Does it have any impact on immunity? And what is this impact when it is a mechanism for it? Then I will see what are the boosting measures that we can take to boost our immunity. And there are 2 points. First, we need to have certainly a healthy body mind. And most important, since the stress, as you will see, is strongly connected to immunity, then we need to find a way how to reduce the stress. And of course, I will end up with, as usual, with some take-home message. So the first point is the human being. It is this body, mind, soul. It's supposed to be a body, mind, soul in harmony. The human being, if we look at it, it's like an entity. It's a biomechanical machine that is governed by an energetic system. So if we want to look at the human being, it is like a vehicle that comprises 3 components, the soul and the body, with the mind being the coordinator between the body and the soul, as we will see. So the vehicle, there is a soul that incarnates in this vehicle into the body, and the body, this is a vehicle body that has to have, for the vehicle to function, it needs to have pilots, and the pilots is the mind with its 2 components, the conscious and the subconscious mind. The real pilot, it is the subconscious mind. This is the most powerful pilot because it drives 24 hours of 24 hours. It has all the programs, it has all the memories. The problem with this pilot, it's blind. So it needs guidance, and the guidance comes from the conscious mind, the co-pilot, which is connected to the soul, as if you see it with the satellite that gives the information, the soul itself being an issue and coming out of in connection with the divine source, with Allah, with the universal energy. So for this human being to function, and we are intended to function, we need to have a perfect harmony between the 3 components. The harmony is not only an internal harmony between the soul, the mind, and the body, but it has to be an external harmony with the divine source, where the energy that comes from this divine source goes through this human being, channeled through the human being, and goes back to the source, which is the divine Allah and God. So if we look at the humanity, in fact, it is multiple human beings that are connected through the souls to the universal energy, to God, to Allah, and they are interconnected among each other. They live within Mother Nature, which is part of the universe. So Allah, God, the universal energy, see, it's energetic. So the center of this whole system is energy. Let's see what the mind is. So we have 3 components, in fact, in the mind. We have first, and very important, it is the unconscious mind, which controls the vital functions, which are responsible for survival, as we all know, doctors. We have the respiratory system, we have the cardiac system, and very important, we have the immune system. This is our army that defends us against all aggressions. The subconscious mind is the mind of the memory, of the feelings, of the emotions, of the behavior. As I told you, it is the most powerful mind. It has all the memory of the whole evolutionary process. It has an unlimited space for memory. The problem, it is blind. And the third component is the conscious mind. This is a mind of intelligence, of creativity, of willpower, of imagination, of critical thinking and logic, but most important is the mind of love. the subconscious mind, as you know, control these vital functions, for survival. And the conscious minds also control one of the function of survival, which is the respiratory system. And as we will see later, this is a very important finding for us to know that sometimes respiration, breathing, it is a form of therapy to release stress and to release anxiety. The conscious mind, as a human, is supposed to be in complete control of the subconscious mind. The problem when we are stressed out, there is a total disconnection between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind, and we become driven completely by the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind control a very important area in the brain, which is the hypothalamic pituitary axis. And as you know, this axis is very important and control all the vital functions that we need for us to survive. The hunger, the thirst, the body temperature, the water-salt balance, the sexual function, and very important, the emotions and the feelings, the sleep, as well as the hormonal system, which is in charge and in control of our immunity. So what is the origin of the stress? The origin of the stress, as I will show you, it is the domestication process. This is a newborn. You see him crying. Quite often I ask gynecologists why babies cry and they don't smile, because they have both reflexes, the crying and the smiling. Well, you get several answers. My personal answer is this cry, it is a reflection of the stress of this poor newborn, especially if he's born now with the corona, that he's moving from a fetal life where he was so comfortable in a fetal position, in aquatic milieu, all his functions and needs are assumed for him, and all of a sudden he's thrown outside into this aggressive, stressful world. So this is where the origin of the stress is. It's at birth, but we will see maybe it's not only at birth, if even before birth. So stress, in fact, originated with the beginning of life. There's no life without stress. They could not have life, and this whole evolution process, it wouldn't be for stress. So stress represents the fundamental and basic drive behind the evolution process for the refinement of the universe energy. And for humans, it's very well reflected, as you can see here, by this first cry at birth. But in fact, stress can go even before that. Well, during the fetal life, there is a very important and strong relationship between the mother and the fetus during this whole fetal life. This relationship is mediated chemically, by hormones, by substance, and most important is electromagnetically. And the fetus himself, beside this relationship, elective relationship with the mother, has as an entity independent relationship with the outside world that quite often could be physical and electromagnetical, in addition to the hormonal system that builds during the fetal life. These are a summary, PubMed from 2018. I'm sure now there's one more study revealing the number of publications and citations that studies the impact of the prenatal stress on gene expression, as well as the impact of prenatal stress and the gene expression on child development later on in life. So you see, it's a field that is evolving today in medicine to show the importance of the fetal life later on in the adult development. This is Bruce Lipton, who wrote a book that I recommend all of you to read, The Biology of Belief, where he talked, like any other scientist too, that the domestication period, in fact, after birth, start within the first 6 to 7 years of life. This is where the brain is in a theta wave activity. It's in an hypnotic state. The brain acts as a sponge, and all the acquired patterns, thoughts, beliefs, emotion that the baby witness, they become hardwired as a program in the subconscious mind, and later on become these programs that drive us and take us through life in 95% of our time. So in fact, in 95% of our time, we are subconscious, and only 5% are left for be conscious. These are two important scientists who study the influence of environment on gene expression and the human development. And in fact, to summarize, I won't go through all the data available, but in fact, there are 3 periods that appear to be conducive to important epigenetic changes. First, I talk about the embryonic development. Second, I just mentioned the early childhood. And very important part is the adolescence, because of the great upheavals that hormonal the hormonal upheaval that is generated during this adolescent period. And many pathologies who declare themselves early on, or to adulthood, might have a link with these early events. So whatever happened to us in this early years of our life, in the fetal life, will determine what happened to us later on in life. As I told you, if this is a lifetime, and we count the number of years that we spend in a subconscious way, we see that we spend 96% of our time subconscious lifetime, and only 4% is left for us to conduct conscious activity. Of course, this domestication process, there are institutions that guide this domestication process, and there are three major institutions, which is the family, I spoke about it, religion, and politics. We know very well religion and politics, what's doing in the Middle East, but most important today is the media that control all this, and the media is completely controlled by the monetary system, as we are witnessing today what's going on in the world. Now everybody agree and everybody fight for, it is for this universal religion, which is, unfortunately, it is a materialistic religion that is governing the world. And if you look at the dollar, it says, in God we trust. So we're combining the material and the spiritual in one thing, in the dollar. What are the tools for this domestication process, for this conditioning process? We are usually conditioned, it is a negative process, quite often, based on blame, shame, anger, hate, vengeance. But most important, there are three components, as I will show you. It is the fear, the guilt, and the sanction that represent the most important tools for us to be controlled, to be domesticated, to be conditioned. And this is all to protect, to ensure a system of punishment reward system. If we are good, we get rewarded. If we are bad, we get punished. And all this to build our ego, our ana, which is our hero, but at the same time, unfortunately, it's our saboteur. So this conditioning process, in fact, results into an individual and collective subconsciousness that lead us to focus mainly on materialism, consumerism, greed, fame, politics, and religion. All this because we're seeking power. The seeking power, it's a very complex process. We do it because we want to control. And once in this process of looking for control or being controlled, generate the stress itself. So the subconscious mind, in fact, is programmed by this acquired belief, has a major influence on our perception of stress, on its amplification, and most important, on our well-being, on our immunity, on our defense system. So what's happening during this pandemic, the corona pandemic? We're undergoing today one of the largest ever conducted global experimentation in the history of humanity. We've been domesticated, and I will show you how. During the corona pandemic, and through the politically and governmentally imposed protective measures, such as the individual and collective lockdown, the distancing, we cannot touch, we cannot feel, the masking, we cannot smell, we cannot taste, the confinement and the isolation, we cannot interact, we cannot socialize. So humans across all ages have been stripped from many of the necessary sensory tools, such as the smell, taste, and touch, for a healthy physical and mental growth. The remaining visual and auditory systems, which are the two sensory remaining systems, are constantly bombarded and profoundly affected by media reporting, which results into the state of fear and panic we are currently living in. So we are forced to feel guilty by being made to believe we are either the potential future victim or the harasser if we do not follow the protective measures, if we do not wear the mask. So you feel yourself that you are the judge and the butcher at the same time. It's very complicated. And in case of disobedience, we are perceived and judged as being hurtful, either to ourselves or to others, and we get sanctioned, as you can hear on TV today. If we don't wear the mask, it's $150. If there is a recurrence of this disobedience that is $1,500, it can end up in jail. Paradoxically, the self or the other becomes the victim and or the criminal. And most importantly, one becomes simultaneously the accused and the judge, the prey and the execution. So this conditioning, as we're going through now, has led us to live in a state of subconsciousness. We became living biomechanical machines, stripped out of most of our sensory systems, functioning in a hypnotic state, receiving, obeying, and executing contradictory, confusing, and annoying orders without thinking. So as I have shown you, fear, guilt, and sanction are these major tools for this domestication to ensure the punishment-reward system that lead us to a state of unconditional obedience at the expense of subconsciously losing the sacred privileges of what make us human. And this is by itself, it is causing the stress that we are all living in today. If we look at the global mortality today, suicide accounts for an estimated nearly 800,000 deaths in 2016. And it represents the second leading cause of death among people aged between 15 and 20 years old, reflecting the kind of stress we're living in. And of course, male suicide death rate were higher in male than female in most countries. What's going on today, and if you look, you can go and look at the Worldometer. This year's suicide number is estimated to be 1.1 million, which reflects an increase of 40% compared to last year because of the corona pandemics and the resulting stress, social, economical, at all levels that is coming from. So what is the relationship between stress and immunity? Well, in order to understand the relationship, we need to understand our constitution, how we function. As I have shown you so far, humans are biomechanical machines driven by their sensations, their feelings, and their emotions that are generated by their thoughts that originate from the perception of the outside world. And these perceptions of the outside world are determined by their own beliefs that are acquired through their domestication process. So you see, and I will show you this, we have the human brain, the outside world, and we perceive the outside world through our sensory system. The most important is the visual system. So whenever we have stress, we perceive the stress. Our perception to the stress is influenced and affected by the way we believe things, by our belief. And this perception, the belief, are translated into thought that will create feeling and emotions. And this feeling and emotions would lead to a mental and physical behavior. And these beliefs, as I have shown you already, are affected and created by the way we are domesticated. So the way we are, so whatever we see outside world, in fact, it is the belief that we have. So these are images we have in our mind that we project to the outside world as a reflection of our perception to the other world. So it's not what we're seeing in the outside world, is what we want to see. And this is affected by the belief and the domestication. This process between the domestication and the belief, it's an energetic process. The process that is translated through thought, feeling and emotion and physical behavior, it is chemical. So in fact, our brain role, it is to transform the thoughts that are energetic, they become translated into chemistry. Buddha have said, what we think, we become. Mahatma Gandhi also have said that our beliefs become our thoughts become our words become our action, and our action become our habits, and our habits become our values, and our values become our destiny. In fact, what he's saying that our beliefs determine what's going to happen to us. So if we believe in a positive way, then we have a positive destiny. If we believe in a negative way, we have the opposite. So the human physiology, in fact, really fits very well this. It's a psychoneuroimmunology, where we have the mental, which is energetic, that influence the neurological, which is our nervous system, that translate this energy into a hormonal state that impact on our physical as well on our immunological being. And this is, again, the mental could, independently of the hormonal state, can impact on our physical and immunological state. And of course, as I have shown you, this mental is affected by the way we are domesticated and the way we generate our belief. So during the evolutionary process, our genes had designed programs for survival. So if we live in a loving, positive environment, this would lead to a growth and reproduction which are associated with a strong immunity. If we live in a stressful environment, and here we have two situations. In the acute phase, we have a fight-flight response. In this case, we have adrenaline, which will strengthen our immune system if it lasts for a short period of time. However, most of the time, and that's what we're living today, it is the chronic stressful environment, which lead to a state of protection and retraction, which will weaken our immunity. So in the acute stress, when we feel threatened or upset, this triggers what we call a fight-flight response. And this is perceived by the brain, as I said, the perception is impacted on by our belief. This will stimulate the hypothalamic area, which will stimulate a hormonal system within the brain that lead through the adrenal gland to the production of adrenaline and cortisol, which this hormone is very important for us to provide us with the energy to be able to behave on an acute phase in order to respond to the stress. So we have tachycardia, we have increase in breathing, we have increase in glucose production, and of course in blood supply to the periphery. So see the chain reaction, the state of alert, it's mental, it goes affect the CNS, will be translated into hormones, and then will end up with a specific action. Now, through the evolutionary process, this is supposed to be for a short period of time. Once the threat ends up within a few minutes, maybe a few hours, there is a cessation of the hypothalamus to produce the hormones, and this would lead us to a state what we call of relaxation. And the state of relaxation is the most important. There are 8 hormones that are involved in the state of relaxation, and that we call the happiness hormone. So remember, the stress hormones are adrenaline and cortisol. The relaxing hormone are 8 hormones. And of course, you all know about them: the oxytocin, acetylcholine, serotonin, melatonin, dopamine. I won't go through all of them. In the chronic stress, the fight-flight response is replaced by a protective response. It's a response of protection, of freeze, of retraction, that lead to a continuous production of stress hormones, cortisol, and adrenaline. So if we live in a positive, creative, healthy environment, the conscious mind is supposed to control our subconscious mind. And this can enjoy many of the sources that are nutrients for the mind and the soul. I'm not going to go all of them, you can read them. But the most important nutrient is love. And all this can lead to sharing, gratitude, pleasure, and happiness. So this is a conducive environment for us to grow, to proliferate, and usually this is associated with a strong immunity. Now, if we live in a stressful and emotional environment as we are living today, as during the pandemics, we lose the connection between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind takes over the control and put us into this continuous and persistent chronic stress response. So we switch to a chronic survival mode. We become self-deprived from all the things that make us happy. And in life, we lose our intelligence and our critical thinking, so we're losing our consciousness. We become completely controlled by the domestication program, which lead to the stress response, which is mediated by the adrenaline and cortisol. So does it have an impact, this chronic stress, on our well-being? Well, we know today stress can affect most of our function, most of our bodily function. And I'm not going to go through them, you all know them, but the most important, it really affects and alters our immunity. It's strongly associated either with autoimmune disease or with cancer that are mediated, as we said, the long-term effect by the adrenaline and the cortisol. And this is a schematic representation of the different effect of cortisol. We all use cortisol. People who work in nephrology or in transplantation, cortisol is an immunosuppressant, and it has a lot of side effects. One of them, it is, of course, the diabetes, obesity, the metabolic syndrome. It causes anxiety, depression, it can lead to suicide, cardiovascular disease, hypertension. But most important, you can see the inflammation and cancer can be caused by many of the side effects of cortisol, whether through the obesity or the metabolic syndrome or the diabetes or the direct effect on the immune system. We'll see how this happens. This is a result of what's going on today in the States, and not only in the States, in many areas and regions in the world. And this is the most alarming problem. It is obesity today and the metabolic syndrome in children. This is a first report of an adult diabetes in an 11-year-old morbidly obese American that was reported by the Time magazine in 2003. This child was 11-year-old chronologically. Biologically, she was 50. She had an adult type 2 diabetes. Why it's of concern? Because it's exactly the same complication that we have it in adult. Children will develop exactly the same complication. So the obesity worldwide, we have nearly 1/3 of the world. People are overweight or obese. In the USA, 1/3 of the adult population are classify as obese, and children, 1/3, and adolescents are either obese or overweight. And obesity today is the 5th leading cause of death in the world, accounting for nearly 3.4 million deaths annually. These are one brother and a sister from Florida who were reported to die from the COVID-19 within 1 week of each other. You see, the sister, the girl and the boy, adolescent, morbidly obese, they die within a few days, they were admitted to the hospital. These are the kind of children today are dying in the States, and adults who are dying today by the COVID-19. So the obesity in children, in fact, as I told you, is associated with many of the complications we see in adults. So in fact, what it does, it increases the risk of early cardiovascular disease and mortality in adult life. So it anticipates, it's an accelerated aging process that would lead to early death, anticipated death. Of course, obesity, you all know today, NASH and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is the most common cause of liver cirrhosis and also the most common cause of hepatocellular carcinoma. So what's happening to us? As we said, through the evolutionary process, we went from millions of years to reach this point, and then within the last century or the last 50 years, we went from this to this. We went from eating healthy to eating junk food. We went from the TV in the 1990s to be fat with the thin man to today, in the 2010, we have the fat man with a thin TV. And that's what we are today, sitting in our chair, smoking and drinking, watching, you know, the screen, all kinds of screens, not even bothering going to, you know, to get our food. Food is delivered to our house. We don't even cook, so somebody else cook for us. Now, what is the global mortality today? And there was a very important report in the Lancet in 2018, looking at the causes of global mortality. There's nearly 57 million people who die every year. 70% of them, they die from non-communicable diseases. And from this non-communicable diseases, 80% they die from cancer, obesity, cardiovascular disease, chronic respiratory disease, metabolic syndrome, diabetes, and probably also kidney disease. So what are the risk today factors for mortality in the COVID-19 patient? We all know this: the male, the advanced age, the diabetes, the hypertension, the obesity, the established cardiovascular disease, the kidney disease, and the cancer. So in fact, these are the non-communicable disease patients. They are exactly the same patients who are dying from the COVID. Why? Because these patients, in fact, what they have in common, they have impairment in tissue blood supply, which means reflect in alteration in oxygen delivery. And that's what they're dying, most of our patients, from problem with oxygenation. This is from a recent paper looking at the immunity and dysregulation in the immune response in patients with coronavirus from China. And what they have concluded, and we know today, that the severe cases of corona are associated with significant immunosuppression that is reflected by a lower lymphocyte count, T cell, T helper cell, and T regulatory cell. But most important, it's associated with a level of infection-related biomarkers and inflammatory cytokines, such as the TNF, the IL-1, IL-6, and chemokines, IL-8, which is suggestive of a possible role of a hyperinflammatory response in COVID-19 pathogenesis. And we know today the cytokine storm, it's a major pathogenetic process in leading to death. There is increase in the inflammation, in fact, hyperinflammation in these patients, severe who die during the COVID-19. So if we want to put into perspective, these patients have, the NCD patient, they have impaired tissue blood supply, which, as we know, is associated with oxidative stress, which can lead, of course, to inflammation and altered immunity. These are the profile of our non-communicable disease patient. If they are exposed to COVID-19 or any other infection, This will aggravate and will worsen the tissue oxygenation, as well as will exaggerate the inflammation as it's happening in the COVID-19 patient. And this, of course, both of them, these factors will lead to increase in the risk of death of this patient. This is another problem with mortality that we are dying. It is addiction. Addiction to substance, mainly the cigarette. And you can tell me, for people who pick up a cigarette from a pack that says that smoking kills, these are the people who are unconscious. They cannot be conscious. This is another new phenomenon of collective subconsciousness, which is the Hubble bubble smoking that is spreading all over like pests, you know, among mainly the young population. Look at tobacco. This is again from another study looking at the comparison of global estimated death, you know, comparing pollution versus other causes. This is pollution here. We have 9 million people who die from pollution every year, mainly the water, mainly air and water pollution, all this preventable deaths. This is followed by tobacco smoking. So tobacco kills nearly 6 to 8 million people every year, again, preventable deaths. And look at COVID-19, it's only here 1 million. So look at so much emphasis is put on COVID-19, and yet we have so many factors that can impact and in fact reduce preventable deaths, such as taking care of the pollution, of the smoking, all alcohol use, malnutrition. There are like 2 million people who die from malnutrition every year. So it's very important to try to understand why so much emphasis on the COVID-19 and not on the other causes of death. This is another addiction, the screen. This is today, it's becoming a health hazard, this addiction mainly starting at early age, where 90%, 80% of children above the age of 2 are already exposed to screen. So how we can boost our immunity? Well, in order to boost our immunity, we have to have a healthy mind and a healthy body. And if stress is behind this reduction in affecting our immunity, we need to learn how we can reduce, how we deal with stress by reducing the impact of stress on us. So we need a healthy mind-body. We need first a healthy mind. When we study in medicine, we did not know this. Now we know today that neuronal regeneration is possible. Old neurons are replaced by others freshly made from stem cells. And each one of us would have this potential, no matter what our chronological age is. So it can happen at any time. And of course, we cannot have a healthy mind, a healthy brain, if we do not have regeneration of our neurons. Now, to allow this regeneration to take place, we need to avoid the harmful factor that can affect this process. What is it? Junk food. We know today with this little varied food that is rich in sugar and fat, in fact, it promotes the proliferation of bacterial species that will suppress production of new neurons regardless of the age. So eating healthy, eating bad is bad for our neurons. Info-obesity. Info-obesity, it's excess information. Today, we are living in an ocean of information. We are bombarded by excess information. 99% of this information quite often is useless with the social media and the screen. And yet, this is extremely harmful. Excess information is absolutely deleterious. It inhibits the brain to produce new neurons. What we need to understand is very essential for the brain to sort out information. The brain needs to understand. It needs to know. It needs to be stimulated. But most important, it needs to understand the stimulation that it received. So, and not the one that just make us know. So having too much information is very harmful for the brain. And not only this, it can create anxiety and create a lot of problems. And this is the issue, the negative effect of social media on people and users. It can create depression and anxiety, negative body image, unhealthy sleep patterns. Sleeping, as we will see, is an extremely important because of the melatonin. And of course, any addiction is extremely harmful for the brain. We need to escape the routine. Now we're living a routine life with this lockdown that we are in. We cannot get out. We cannot see anybody. We're living in a routine. There is a very important study, the Harvard study, that looked at 80 years follow-up of what happened to people, of the well-being of people, of the longevity of people, of the happiness of people, of the good health of people. They looked and they looked. So one of the findings of the study, they found that loneliness kills. It's as powerful as smoking or alcoholism. So we need to avoid the routine. We need to maintain the search to understand, to self-stimulate ourselves in order for us to learn. Now, other important things for the regeneration, harmful, it is the chronic stress that I've been talking about. It can significantly impact the regeneration of neurons at all stages of life, depending on our perception to the environment. And of course, the medication, the chemistry we take to deal with the stress, you know, the sleeping pills, the anxiolytics, we know today this anxiolytic and sleeping pills prevent the brain from functioning. Their consumption allows to put the brain into an automatic subconscious mode. It disconnects the conscious mind from the subconscious mind. And therefore, their chronic use is therefore an obstacle to the production of new neurons. Relationship is extremely helpful. And this is a study that I told you about, the Harvard study. They looked at the importance of factors that affect adult development. And what they have found, the most important factor is the quality of the relationship. And talking quality of relationship, it is at all levels, the social relationship, the familiar relationship, and the marital relationship. And it went in one of the conclusions that for couples, if they're not doing well together, it's better for couple, those who divorced or separated in a very healthy, conscious way, they lived longer, they lived happier, they lived healthier than those compared to those who remain in their, sick, pathological, anxious relationship. We need to have a healthy body too. And here I cannot talk about healthy body, and I know I spoke about this last time, but I think we need to re-emphasize this, the importance of the microbiota, and the microbiome. The microbiome is the DNA that results from the microbiota. Every human hosts 1.5 to 2 kilos of infectious agents, mainly bacteria and viruses within our cells, mainly within the intestine. And the number of these infectious agents amount to 10 times the number of our own cells. Our body is estimated to be composed of 35 to 50 trillion cells. So the viruses and the bacteria amount to 10 times this number. And as humans, these bacteria, they have the good guys and the bad guys. I'm not going to go which the bad and the good, but they live in perfect symbiosis. They live in perfect harmony together, where mainly the good bacteria dominate 90% of the flora, usually is 90% and over. And every time we have the bad bacteria that proliferate over 10%, then we start to have problems. The microbiome, which is the DNA of this bacteria, represents 100 times our own DNA. In other words, the total DNA that exists in our body, 98% of this DNA is the bacterial viral DNA, and 2% is coming from we inherited from our parents. And each one of us has a specific microbiota, like the HLA. It's unique mix to each human being that contain more than 1,000 different species. And many people believe, we know today, because the field of research is really exploding on this, there's tremendous amount of data about the relationship, and I spoke about it last time, between the mind, between the brain and the microbiota, and many people believe we have two brains, and probably the microbiota play the most important. Why? Because the microbiota, in fact, represent the existence of Mother Nature within us. So it is the coordinator between the human being and Mother Nature. Remember, we are an extension of Mother Nature at all levels. We have the same composition of Mother Nature, chemical, physical, and energetic. So there is a significant interaction, and this is what we call between the brain and the microbiota, and that's what we call today the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. As you can see, there is a bilateral bidirectional relationship, mainly maintained by the vagus nerve, where 80% of the fiber of the vagus nerve are ascending nerve from the guts to the brain, and 20% from the brain to the nerve. So to tell you how important the information that the brain receives from the microbiota. So any stress that we perceive, that we interpret as stress, impact, as I have shown you before, our hypothalamic pituitary axis and lead ultimately to the production of cortisol, which can alter the permeability of the intestine, in fact, can damage the intestine and increase the proliferation of certain bad bacteria, which by proliferating can produce certain substance that can cross the barrier, or themselves, this bacteria can cross the barrier. They can affect the immune cells, and they can cause the immune cells to produce cytokines that can cross the brain barrier and affect the brain. The same way the brain can also affect this, the intestinal permeability. We need to know that serotonin, 95% of serotonin is produced. This is the most important happiness hormone, is produced by the microbiota. So you see this intimate and extremely important and complex relationship between the brain and the microbiota. So this bidirectional communication between the two is independent of the sequence of mental or physical events leading to the state of alteration in the microbial community. So such influence may occur early on in life and affect the development of the nervous system, the immune system, the brain interaction with the intestine, and the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. If we look at the role of microbiota in changing the weight, these are two rats have the same genetic backgrounds, the same diet, and the same calories. One is exposed to a microbiota coming from a thin woman, which give a normal, offspring. On the right-hand side, it's exposed to a microbiota coming from an obese woman. It gives an obese, the offspring are obese. If we give we give microbiota from the normal offspring to those who have a potential to become obese, they become a normal offspring. So you see, there is a very important role of the microbiota in affecting the weight change. And I cannot go through it because there's a lot of publication citation in this. Look at the influence also. This is a review, recent review on the influence of microbiota on immunity, chronic inflammation, and cancer and aging, reviewing all the studies that have been published. And you can see this triangular, this triad relationship between the microbiota, the immune system, and the cancer, where the immune system can affect the microbiota, the same way the microbiota can affect this immune system to induce cancer, either indirectly or directly. So any change in the immune system can affect the microbiota, and any change in the microbiota can affect the immune system and can make the people prone to a dysregulation in the immune system, leading to either autoimmune disease or cancer. And this is a very recent paper a few months ago from, I believe, from Wuhan, looking at the alteration in the microbiota in those patients who was hospitalized with COVID-19. You can see on the left-hand side, this is the microbiota from healthy people, and this is from the COVID-19. There is certainly, and I'm not going to go through the detail, significant difference between the two, and there is an abundance of specific pathogens with the inpatient with COVID-19 that is associated with the severity of the COVID-19 and the prognosis of COVID-19. So you see, COVID-19 patients have a specific microbiota completely different from healthy microbiota. So you can understand today why microbiota is important, because the microbiome has an influence on the following importance in our health, such as nutrition, immunity, and diseases such as asthma, eczema, cancer and autoimmune disease. I already mentioned all this, and also has a very important impact on neurodegenerative, psychiatric, and behavioral disorders. So what are the harmful factors that can affect the microbiota? Sorry, what happened? It crashed.
Okay.
So the gut, what are the harmful factors for the microbiota? The factors that can affect negatively the microbiota, for instance, are antibiotics. As physicians, When we use repeated, now the patient self-prescribe antibiotics. In fact, what they do, they eliminate the bad bacteria, but also they kill the good and seriously deplete the intestinal flora. Another important thing, it is what we eat, the toxin and the pollutant that also can devastate the microbiota in our daily life. Industrial sweeteners, that's saccharides, sucralose, and aspartame, they ravage. They are the worst you can do, to affect negatively. They are worse than sugar. They ravage the microbiota. Chronic stress, again, it can significantly impact the microbiota at all stages of life. What can help to regenerate new neurons? What are the favorable factors for its healthy food? Healthy food, in fact, what it does, especially the Mediterranean food that we all eat, it's rich in fibers and encourage the proliferation of certain bacterial species that contribute precisely to the proliferation of neurons. So you see the good food affect the microbiota and indirectly affect the production of new neurons. And this is a very recent paper just came out about the importance of apple, and very well conducted study, beautiful study. It points out to the ability of apples to mediate significant gut microbial metabolic activity. And it takes, used to be 1 apple a day. I think now we have to eat 2 apples a day, because what it does, in fact, it increases the link between gut microbiota and human wellness. Physical activity, you all know, is extremely important. Why? Because during physical activity, the muscle produce certain substances. As you all know, we call them trophic factors, endorphins, which through the blood will act on the brain and particularly on the stem cells to produce new neurons. So there is a direct link, correlation between muscle activity and the production of neurons. Now, we spoke about how to body-mind, how to take care of our body and mind. Now we need to look at how we can reduce our stress. It's very important. Stress is there. We cannot eliminate it. As we said, it's part of life. So we have to see how we can reduce the stress. So what are the coping strategies? This is a list, and there are more. I'm not going to go through all of them, but what you need to know, there is one way to deal with stress. Each one of us has to individualize his way using vast measures that are available to us to see what is the most comfortable, the best for us to deal with the situation. And we have a list of all this, going from micronutrition all the way to hypnosis, to yoga, meditation, acupuncture, biofeedback, name it. Very simple exercise, breathing exercise, which means there are 3 phases. The inhalation, we inhale for 4 seconds, we keep it for 7 seconds, and then we exhale for 7 seconds. Believe me, do it. It helps a lot. I do it every day while driving, going to work for 10 minutes. Meditation is extremely important. Why is it important? Because it silences the subconscious mind. This is the importance of meditation, because it makes the person focus on the present moment by disconnecting from both the past and the present. Today, our problem, if we tell you in Lebanon today, either we're living in our past, that is the source, as you know, with so many problems we have, and we project over our future based on the experience we have from the past. So we project on a negative future instead of focusing only on the present moment and learn from our past to improve our present and help us to project in a positive way for our future. That will determine, in fact, our present in a positive way. The meditation, in fact, if you do imagery, there is an activation of the left prefrontal cortex that is associated with positive emotions. And at the same time, it appeases the cerebral amygdala that is implicated in fear and anxiety. So we need to get rid of this perception of fear and anxiety. And meditation really helps us in doing this. This is very important. I'm sure you all heard about it, the intermittent fasting. Today, intermittent fasting, I think, is one of the tools with solid scientific evidence to show its importance in affecting our health and our well-being and our immunity, as you can see. I'm not going to go through the mechanism, but what it does, in fact, it improves health and immunity. It increases the resistance to disease. It allows longevity, and it's extremely efficient in a wide range of chronic disorder. It reduces stress, it reduces the risk for obesity and diabetes, for cardiovascular disease, for cancer and inflammation, as well as for neurodegenerative brain disease. We need to have a good sleeping pattern. Why? Because melatonin, I'm sure you all heard about, melatonin is produced during sleeping. And melatonin probably is one of the most important hormones that we have. Melatonin, as you know, it is produced during sleeping time. And it is where during sleeping time, we have the regeneration, we have the destruction of billions of cells every day, and the regeneration of billions of cells. And all this under the effect of melatonin. Melatonin is involved in the regeneration, which means in the production of new cells. Melatonin deficiency is associated with cardiovascular disease, increase in the risk of thrombosis, in the risk of sleeping, of stress. So melatonin is extremely important. And to have adequate melatonin production, we need to have a good sleeping pattern, which no more, depending on the age, 6 to 7, at least 6 to 7 years, 7 hours during the 24 hours. But most important, see, every time we have stress, we're blaming everything on others. We're blaming things on the stress. We need to become conscious. And in order to be able to think in a healthy way, we need to move out of our subconscious state. Remember, we live 95% of our time in subconscious state. So to be conscious, we cannot be conscious and subconscious at the same time. We need to move out of our subconscious state. And to do this, we have to ask questions. Who is responsible for our destiny, for what we're going through now? Is it genetics? Is it environment? Is it something else? How is our response to the situation that we're dealing with? Is it healthy and positive, or is it negative? So in fact, what we need to know, what determines our final destination, is not what happened to us in life. It is rather how we respond to it. So it's not the stress itself. It is our perception and our response, which is, remember I told you, determined by our belief and our domestication. And that's why the importance of the stress, it is important in our life. Stress could be extremely, depending how we look at it, could be healthy if we know how to deal with it, if we know how to interpret it, if we know how to look at it. So in fact, we need to change our mindset. We no longer should think about stress as a threat, as we're seeing today, with the corona, as a demoralizer, as a pressure on us, as overwhelming, as debilitating. In fact, we need to change completely our control and our reaction. In order to control our reaction, we need to change our mindset by thinking that the stress as a challenge rather than the problem, as a possibility and an occasion for us to find alternative solutions rather than focusing on the problem itself. We need to embrace stress and think about it as could be something healthy if we know how to deal with it instead of fighting it. Because the more you fight it, the more it will amplify the stress. And I love these photos because it allows, as I told you, this is a child coming out of a frame, and this is what we have to do. We need to get out of the frame that was created for us through the domestication. And once we get out of it, then you can start to live and regret all the moments that we missed that was imposed upon us by the way we were conditioned. And this is very important. To do this, once you do this, you need to have certain knowledge. And the access to knowledge for us as humans, we perceive through our radars, the sensory systems that we have. Now, we have 5 sensory systems. I spoke about them early on in the talk. So we need to have a minimal amount of knowledge through our 5 senses. And we need to process this. Now, how to proceed? First, we have to accept the knowledge. Quite often, people refuse to listen. So once we have a knowledge that we think might help, we need to accept it. We need to understand it. So we need to go deep into it and try to understand what it means, this knowledge. Understanding is not enough. We need to assimilate it. We need to digest it in order to truly understand what's behind this message that I'm getting from this knowledge, from this information. And then we have to start into our conscious state, which means start to have a critical thinking, intelligent analysis. How is this information, this new knowledge is going to help me deal with my stress, deal with my situations? And once I figure it out, and we all can figure it out, then I have to decide what to do. And once I decide what to do, I need to execute, because most people stop at the decision. Rarely people move to the execution because it has to happen within a short period of time. And most important, once we execute, if we execute, we have to have a retroactive audit to see whether we're moving in the right direction or not, whether we're doing the right thing or not. And during this process, quite often, we can go up and down, but the most important is to keep focus and to go up the ladder. So intelligent knowledge is power. Excessive knowledge is toxic, and lack of knowledge is disastrous, and that's what unconsciousness is. So we are, as you know, we are always in our cockpit and we are always addicted to our thoughts. That's what we know. We don't want to change. In fact, we cannot. We need to change. We cannot change anything unless we change our way of thinking, unless we go out of this, frame that was designed for us. And we know today that our sensation can modify our DNA and can modify our genes. This is today in science. And we know today from epigenetics that sensation can modify our DNA and the activity of our genes. So the perception, the interpretation of the perception of our outside environment is produced, is ensured by the mind, which, as you know, as I told you, this interpretation of the perception is affected by the belief, which is generated by our domestication. This perception is transmitted to the brain that activate the gene, whether in a positive or negative way, which would lead ultimately to a specific behavior. So if our perception and our interpretation coming from our belief are positive, then we have a positive behavior. Otherwise, if they are negative, then we have a negative behavior. So the perception, as I just told you, activate or suppress the genes. The perception rewrite genes. The perception control the behavior. But most important, it is the belief that control the perception. So we have to go back to the belief in order to change our perception. So if we think positive one time only is not enough. Remember, these beliefs have been acquired through, hours and days and years of domestication. So thinking only positive one time is not enough. So we have to have a code of conduct. We need to think positive all the time. And the code of conduct is summarized in this book that I highly suggest to all of you, the 4 Toltec agreements. You can have it on free of charge on the internet. And there are 4 agreements for us to live happily, healthy, strong, and to have a fulfilled life. First and most important, we need to have, again, a positive attitude, which is a positive attitude is what? It is think positive, talk positive, and act positive. And act positive toward yourself and toward others, because everything starts with the self. If we don't love ourselves, if we don't respect ourselves, if we don't think highly about ourselves, we cannot have a healthy relationship with others, and others cannot have a healthy relationship with. So everything starts with us, within us. Second, do not presume, do not assume. Always ask questions, always try to understand. Don't make movies in your head. Third, do not take it personal. So whenever there is a problem, stress, maybe it's not, it's directed against you. Maybe there is something else. So try to understand what's going on. And most important, do your best in order to avoid the guilt. Remember, the guilt is one of the target, the tool of domestication. You do your best sometimes could be nothing, doing nothing, and sometimes could be something else. So if we apply these 4 rules, believe it or not, it can help you greatly to deal with our stress and strengthen our immunity. So if we remove our acquired domestication and all the self-inflicted dark perception, as I just mentioned, and beliefs, if we remove them and we change our mindset and we start to think in a different way, then all the beauty in our life, all the positivity start to show up. And you can say it because it's within us. It's not outside, it's within us. Do we need a coach? Sometimes we need a coach, yes. The coach could be somebody specialized, but to me, the most important and the cheapest coach is Mother Nature. Albert Einstein said, look deeply into nature and you will understand everything better. Bruce Lipton said something beautiful. The most experienced life coach you can ever have is Mother Nature. She has millions of years of experience managing an entire planet. Remember, we said that in order to live happily, we need to be in perfect harmony, body, mind, and soul. Yes, we need to be perfect harmony with Mother Nature. which is we represent, and we are an extension of Mother Nature. We are a very important part of Mother Nature. And we, as I told you, we have the same chemical, physical, electromagnetic composition. We need Mother Nature, not Mother Nature don't need us. So what are the laws? So we need to live in perfect harmony with Mother Nature and her laws. What are these laws? It's cooperation, adaptation, sharing, and satisfaction, harmony, simplicity. I want to show you a simple example. This is from our dialysis unit. On the left-hand side, two patients, helping each other. But the most important is this photo. This is a man. These are two dialysis patients coming out of the dialysis unit, and they go in and out, helping each other. He's diabetic, as you can see. He's blind, but he can walk. This patient here, he can see, but he cannot walk. So they help each other, they cooperate, they share each other's strengths to go in and out of the dialysis unit without any help. They help each other. And they are, as you can see on their face, they are happy and satisfied. So you see, this is a simple example of 5 laws of Mother Nature. What are the other laws? Diversity, tolerance, balance, resilience, timing. I'm not going to go through all of them. Recycling. But the most important, all these what I have mentioned, are the basic ingredient of love. This is the most important law of Mother Nature, is love. It's the only thing we can give, even if we did not have it. Love is the most effective natural resource we humans have, and the one that ever lasts once planted, long after we have been recycled. Love is the only natural resource that strengthens once planted and shared, in contrast to all other material resources that dilute and weaken once divided. Jalaluddin Rumi have said something beautiful. A lifetime without love is of no account. Love is the water of life. Drink it down with heart and soul. This is a famous singer, rock singer, Jimi Hendrix from the 60s. He said, when the power of love overcomes the love of power, the world will know peace. This is contrary to what we are living in the world we're living in today. This is a friend of mine. He's quadriplegic. He wrote 5 books so far. The 4th book he wrote, his name was Sada As-Sukut, which means Echo of Silence, in 2013. He wrote about unconditional love and consciousness, which are basically, consciousness is unconditional. He says, from the womb of love comes sharing, which lead to trust and inner peace, that lead to happiness and satisfaction and devotion, which lead to altruistic donation and generosity, which is the basic fundamental ingredient for selflessness. Selflessness is you're nothing and you're everything at the same time. He sent last year for Halloween, what's the not Halloween, it's the day of lovers. He said, he sent that love is a medication, is a treatment. If you give it to your brother, it will heal you and will heal him at the same time. Why love is so important? Because of its neutrality. Love creates harmony in our cells and put them into a quiescent state. Love heals our cells and strengthen our immunity. So this is one of the things. And to be able to be in a state of love, we need to get rid of all the tools of domestication, which are the fear, anger, the guilt, the sanctions, all what we have mentioned before. And I would like to share with you this. Italo Calvino, he wrote, this is an Italian writer and philosopher. He wrote a book in the 70s called The Invisible Cities. He said, the hell of the living is not a thing to come. If there is anyone, it is the one who is already here, the hell we live in every day that we form together. There are 2 ways not to suffer. The first easily succeeds to most. We accept hell, become a part of it to the point of not seeing it anymore. That's what most people today are living in, especially with this pandemic. The second is risky and requires constant attention and learning. Seek and know who and what in the midst of hell is not hell, and make it last and make room for it. So I would like to conclude. It's time for humans to become conscious and loving in order to live happy and healthy life in complete harmony with a strong immunity according to Mother Nature and her laws. And thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Professor Antoine Barbari, for this very, very, very nice presentation. It is conducted by the unusual way. You are really a philosopher, and I agree.
Thank you.
I agree with all.
I'm just sharing my personal, this is my personal belief. And I try to live this life. That's what every time I'm saying, it is something I try to live.
I'd like to leave the mic to Professor Sobh to hear from him, because I think one of the most important points to be added to your presentation is the role model. And here at Urology and Nephrology Center Mansoura, we are lucky as new generations to have Professor Sobh as a role model with us. So
Excellent.
the presence of role model who loves the right way of living and the healthy attitude, I think it is invaluable. And this is why we are lucky to have Professor Sobh and the next generation after Professor Sobh in leading our unit, trying to apply the sense of humor and love. All of us respect the senior, and when the young generations found seniors respect their seniors, so this is the cycle of respect and love within the unit. Love, respect, and firmness are present. But I'd like to leave the mic to Professor Sobh and then come back to you.
Yeah, no, I'm very happy actually being attending this great lecture from this great man. Actually,
Thank you.
this lecture is unusual. It needs a special man to deliver, not a doctor only, but as Dr. Hussein said, philosopher.
I'm humbled.
It's great lecture actually. When I was at home, I asked myself, and even I asked my son, who is a lecturer, who is a resident in nephrology, what do you think Dr. Antoine is going to talk about?
Vaccination.
And actually, I was talking with him. He said, okay, for boosting immunity, correct the deficiencies. I said to him, no exercise, microbiota, to mind in peace. And actually, I was expecting that you are going to talk about drugs. But actually, you talk about what I feel inside.
And the
Immunity actually comes from our body, from our soul, from our mind. To manipulate our environment, as you said. Actually, your lecture, I feel it, but I cannot produce it as a lecture as you did. It is the mind, this is defense number one. And actually, when I am facing stress, I do what you said exactly now. I do breathing exercise. Sometimes when I'm under pressure, and I feel this many times, I do this breathing exercise, what we say. Also, I practice the splitting between subconscious and conscious, at least momentary. And I feel, actually, sometimes I feel I'm going to suffer from something. For example, hypertensive crisis. I feel the prodroma, but many times I succeeded to cut short this prodroma of hypertensive crisis by using these two techniques, splitting between subconscious and conscious, and doing breathing exercise. You were very intelligent and very efficiently presented that Allah created us with a great energy inside us, inside our body, our mind, our soul. But it needs someone to think, as you said, positively, not negatively. Actually, your lecture was great, stressing on microbiota, soul, mind, these techniques of splitting and breathing exercise was a great lecture. I said to myself when I was coming here, Dr. Antoine possibly will not talk about exercise. I believe very much in exercise. Exercise has a great role with immunity, with cancer, with heart, and many things. And actually, I practice it every day. But I found that you cover it very, very efficiently, exercise and microbiota. It was one of the best lectures I saw this year at least. And I would like to thank you very much for this very important lecture, not for us as seniors, but even for beginners, not even for doctors. If you can manipulate it for the general population. It
I
is
do.
great thing
I
to
do it.
learn
I
the
do.
people how to keep healthy, how to keep happy. This is a great lecture, and thank you very much for delivering this great lecture again.
Thank you very much, Professor Antoine Barbari, for this excellent, fascinating presentation. I agree with many concepts, love and love and love. And I remember the letter of Albert Einstein to his daughter about the power of love. This is, I think, a fantastic letter. And he mentioned in the letter some sentence in English that love may be superior and more powerful than any army or bombardment. Exercise, Professor Subhi mentioned exercise, and I like to strengthen on exercise. During my COVID presentation last Tuesday, I put a slide about exercise. Exercise even drive a healthy cascade through ameliorating the bar alpha and other thrombogenetic and inflammatory pathway in COVID. So I encourage even patients and my colleagues who have COVID to practice exercise according to their capabilities. To be positive and practicing the positive attitude, it may be within ourselves and may need coaching and it may be practiced and trained. So training and the practice can help us a lot. Today you mentioned 2 apples a day makes a doctor away, and the old statement, 1 apple a day makes a doctor away.
Practice a very interesting. The paper, that's a very well conducted research. It's a randomized control trial. It's not so they prove through markers of the microbiota, the healthy markers of microbiota. They prove that 2 apples a day are capable of inducing a positive impact on the microbiota and our well-being. And this is, been known from before, by our ancestors. Used to 1 apple a day keeps the doctor away. So
yes, even if the evidence-based medicine say contradictory words, but it's accepted from the rational thinking and from the health style. Sleep disorders, sleep disorder is bad, even for the kidney. The poor quantity and the poor quality of sleep are associated with many sympathetic neuronal problems that may lead to even chronic kidney disease. So if we think of CKD and how to retard the CKD progression, one of very important to help people to learn how to sleep well in quantity and quality. You delivered many messages, and I prefer to leave the mic to dear professors and colleagues to listen from.
I just want to have a comment. You talked about role model.
Yes.
I truly believe in role model. And my definition to role model, you are a role model. I think both of you are role models. And I like both of you. Role model is, and that's why we're lacking today role models. It is the thought, again, I go back to the thought, the word and the action in perfect harmony in one line. Quite often is not the case. People say something, think something, say something, and do something else. That's why people are losing faith in leaders, political leaders, religious leaders, and it's very rare. And you see, our ancestors, really, they were true leaders. They did not have social media, they did not have power, they didn't have armies, the big, philosophers. It was what they have done that was according to their thought and the word. They said something and they did exactly the same. So this is, and we're lacking leadership, we're lacking the role model in leadership. And I truly believe whenever you have a true leader, you see people follow. People want to follow. They don't want to think. People follow, but they have to follow and believe in something, that is positive. Today, what we're believing is the corona. People are scared. They don't, even when you talk to them, they don't want to listen. They are so scared, so afraid, so panicky, they don't want to listen. And I have series of lectures I hope I will be sharing with you on the corona. Totally different, from the using some science and some other things to show you my personal perspective on corona.
So we are eager for this
Okay.
and I will arrange with you because I always learn from your style of presentation. As you speak about the role model, we have Professor Ad Said. I consider him a role model for the young generations to be.
He's still there. He's still there. I thought he got bored or something. No, he's still there.
I like to
listen. I think I was all the way with you, and except for 1 or 2 minutes, you don't believe what I did. First of all, it's a nice talk. Really, I enjoyed it. It's a talk in philosophy and everything you call it, which is your style. I know that. The only thing I did really when I missed a couple of minutes, I took an apple. That's what I did.
Oh, you hurt yourself by taking apple.
That's exactly. That's exactly. I enjoyed your talk. It's really fantastic. I have nothing to add to Professor Subh and Professor Hussein on what they commented. Really, it's fantastic talk.
Thank you. Thank
And
okay.
The issue of fasting mimicking diet, we had a very nice presentation from Professor Osama Hamdi from Joslin. He spoke about the fasting mimicking diets. So it seems that fasting and intermittent fasting have unbelievable effects, positive effects on our life and our health. So I like to hear from other professors and colleagues. Professor Faisal Shaheen.
Well, thank you very much, Antoine. It is a great talk as usual from someone like you. And I cannot add anything more than what Professor Subh mentioned about you. It is great talk. And probably if you can just add the cognitive diseases and the effect of the style, the lifestyle and cognitive disease, because something which we are looking to improve this, or to avoid cognitive diseases in elderly, which again, I think it is the same way where you talk about. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cognitive, I remember a few words from great professors and the leaders in the community that even the brain, by practicing the healthy styles, and today we learned a lot from healthy style in education and the issue of obesity. This is the first time for me to hear, but yes, I agree with you that moderation in everything is important for the brain, and the coaching the brain or training the brain for its function makes a positive cycle. Professor Said Khamis, yes.
Sam, can you put the screen? Let me see people. I like to see people. You put the screen. Can you change the screen?
Okay.
Yes, so I'd like to see people. Is better than.
Okay, Professor Said Khamis.
Yes, Professor Hussein. How are you?
It's fine. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Professor Antoine, for this very, very amazing and out of the box, as Professor Subh mentioned, presentation. I have just, if you allow me, 2 short questions. Number one, from your point of view, based on this amazing lecture, why some people, even young and athletes and very healthy people, die from corona, and people over 90 years old, they can survive, and so based on your vision of view. That's number one. Number two, as a medical director or whatever, how can you motivate the employee with you? In our third world country, we didn't look at this concept at all to motivate our employee. Not only by making 1 trip per year or 1 picnic per year, I mean on daily basis, how to motivate the employee in your unit or on your department. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Said. Professor Antoine.
Excellent question. The first question, from the data, international data we have, that young people who are dying, below 50, they have quite often at least one thing that is not known, unnoticed. They could have a problem with the immune system, they could have cancer, they could have something else that we're not aware of. I have a friend of mine, I lost last year, it was a colleague, we were classmates in medical school. We had dinner together, and he lived in France. So he left Lebanon after 2 weeks. Then I know that 2 weeks after, he had an abdominal pain, did an MRI, and he had a pancreatic cancer, and he died within 3 months. When I saw him, he was extremely healthy. And we see it today in many of when they admit for COVID, they tell you in a 49-year-old, otherwise healthy person. You see the lab at admission, these patients usually are lymphopenic, they have an albumin of 2.5, they have a CRP of 200. So there is something else. We had many people who died young from leukemia, so I think one of the factors, it is at least there is some comorbidities that we are not aware of. Remember, we cannot make diagnosis of this only by looking at patients. We cannot. Second, today I learned, they show on TV, a lady, 106-year-old lady, she got COVID-19, she had fever, some cough, and she went home. She's 100, and you have to see the lady, happy, strong, incredible. Then again, I'm going to go back to the state of mind. The state of mind today, I don't know if you're aware of, many of the people who died in Europe and in the USA, they died as collateral damage, not from the COVID, with the COVID-19, which means these were people who were confined. They lost all their sensory. They were isolated. They were not cared for. In China, what happened? The lockdown was a partial lockdown. They locked down 3% of the country. And if you remember Wuhan, it is the first smart city with a 5G. So there are robots. They were locked down, and they cared for the people who were locked down. In Europe, there were no caring for the people who, in fact, the ones who were in the hospitals, they got them out, sent them back to the nursing home because they wanted to reserve the places for the young people. And they ended up dying in the epidemics in the nursing home. And those who died in their homes, they died because they were not cared for, they were not attended, they were by themselves, there were no social contact, and these are the causes of death from the COVID-19. So they got depressed, they get anxious, and suicide. Remember, I showed you a slide. There's increased by 40% the number of people who will die from suicide this year. So these are COVID-related death. I'm not going to go deep in the COVID. The PCR, there's no association between PCR and infectivity. PCR positive does not mean COVID disease, please. This is very important information. PCR, because the PCR is detecting 1% of the genome of this that could be shared by other. Even if you look at the kit of the companies that sell the PCR, they tell you there is a cross-reactivity with many viruses. And in fact, is not designed, the PCR, for diagnosis, clinical diagnosis, is designed for research purpose. So we don't know today the fatality, the true fatality from COVID-19. I showed you the non-communicable diseases. There are 40 million people who die from non-communicable diseases. There are 9 million people who die from pollution. There are 6 million people who die from tobacco. These are all preventable diseases. So why we did the fuss about the COVID? I'm not saying that does not exist, but I think we are over-amplifying. And this campaign of over-amplifying is causing the state of fear and panic that people are living in. They're becoming completely subconscious and unaware, and they're obeying and they're following orders without wanting. They are completely discomforted by all the measures that we are supposed to take to protect ourselves. And anyway, everybody's going to get it. So this is, I think, it's playing a major role in the mortality of non-communicable disease. For the second question, I think we already answered it. The role models. Be a role model. When you are a role model, no matter how difficult the condition you're living in, if you are the leader and you are the first one, whatever you say and you ask the people living, the co-workers, you are the first one to do it, everybody will follow. Power is you have to acquire, you have to acquire, you have to gain your respect. You cannot impose your respect. No matter what you do, you take them. Happiness is within. So if we are good with ourselves, if the leader that is with us is the first one to execute, then there is no problem. You have and I think Mansoura is the perfect example of great leadership.
Yes, I agree with you, Professor Antoine Barbari, for this point. I never say to the resident, you should come earlier in your time, 8 o'clock, you should be in your place. Well, I'm coming at 12 o'clock. So if I want him to obey and to follow the rules within the center, I should be obeying the style of work. So role model is essential. For the first point, the most important fact in the life is death. This should occur, but the following all these positive styles, from lifestyle modifications, from healthy mind, practicing exercise, etc. All these points ameliorate, reduce the burden. Even if I reduce and increase the longevity by some days or some years or some, this is positive effect, and this is advantage for these points. 2 days ago, I have a recorded presentation about the update of diabetic kidney disease, and I highlighted the KDIGO guidelines for diabetic management of type 2 diabetes with kidney disease. And I like the sector of the guidelines about lifestyle modification. And one of the key statements is stop smoking for all. And this is very nice. Exercise and how to encourage more physical activity. For those who even practice exercise, how to increase the duration of exercise per week, how to cut down salt. So all these are fantastic ways, even to allow us to to live in this world healthy. Even if they don't prolong our life, the quality of life will be improved by all these issues. And the issue of rate of death, I think it is comparison. If I take a large number, if large number practice proper style, they will live longer.
Of course. You know, what we see today as nephrologists, you know, I see in my clinic.
Yes.
I see patients consulting me for physical manifestation that are reflecting a disturbance in their energy, in the flow of energy that I discussed before. Why? Because if this energy is stuck, it's stagnate, then this would lead us to a retractive state, retraction, freezing state, with the chronic cortisol secretion, which is associated with all the complications today as nephrologists we see in our patient. So if I treat my patient with only medication without making him realize that your physical manifestation that you're consulting for, it is a result of your disturbance in your own energy, which means if I give you Tylenol or Panadol to treat a fever coming from a cancer, I won't heal the cancer.
Yes.
So for me, it's very important for him to understand the process that he's been in a subconscious state leading him to where he is today. So for him to understand, and then let him make the decision and answer the question, is this good the way I was dealing with my stress, with my life? And if he answered no, then he's going to find the second question, where I want to go now. I'm going to change the direction. Then you can, not you heal the patient, he will be healing himself once he understands the process, what got him here. And this is what I call a holistic medicine, a holistic approach. You're dealing with the energy and the body at the same time, you know, body soul.
Yes, it is multidisciplinary approach, including patient actively in the decision making and the management strategy. I'd like to leave the mic to Professor Maya Hasaballah. Professor Maya.
Professor Antoine, this was an excellent. How are you first?
I'm fine. Good to see you, to hear you.
Great.
Always.
This was an extraordinary presentation. Yes, it's so positive. It puts you on the right path. And yes, I agree with Professor Subh. It should be given to the world, not just to us physicians. So it's so amusing and interesting and reflective presentations that makes you look to the human being not just as a body a body and soul and brain, and to understand the factors affecting him, because only then you will understand his reactions and his disease, and only then you can deal with him. So no wonder you spend so much time with your patients, really. So,
and it's a pleasure for me to spend time with my patients.
yes, this is great. I think you're one in a million. So chapeau to you, really, really.
Unfortunately, it's getting lost today, physicians, and this is a complaint you see from the patients, Mike. They tell you that physicians are not spending time anymore with the patient.
Yeah.
You know, I think medicine, being a doctor, it is a dedication. It is a mission in life. And if you believe in this and you love it, then you love your patient. And if you love the profession and you love your patient, you know, we talked about love. Love is healing. You can heal your patient from the trust your patient will put in you. You're not the healer. He will heal himself through the trust he put in his patient, through the love that you give him. So love is, for me, is the healing.
And speaking of love in this materialistic word, this is what is really needed. Really, we all need that. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, man.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Professor May. I think we have questions to you, Professor Antoine, before closing the session about the vaccines, because we are expecting that we find sector about vaccines, either general vaccines or vaccines for corona. I'd like to hear from your perspectives about this issue.
All right. You know, the soul, I think first, before going to the vaccine, we need to know what we are vaccinating against. No? We don't know what we are vaccinating against. If you hear my personal perspective, and this is a subject of a whole talk, what is the virus? Are we dealing with a virus or are we dealing with an exosome? You know, you all heard about the exosome. What happened in Wuhan? The first question, again, we need to ask questions. Not being afraid, because once you're afraid, you lose your intelligence, you lose your creativity, you lose your critical thinking. Most important question, why it started not in Cairo, it started in Wuhan. Why? What is something specific in Wuhan that had led to this whole pandemic that put the whole world at its knees, that broke the world? I have my personal perspective. Now, if you hear me, some people say I'm in conspiracy theory. The problem today, every time you say something different from what the main media is programmed to tell you, you are a conspirator. I don't believe personally in conspiracy. I believe in understanding. I believe in intelligence. I believe in a human being. So I think there are three factors that are specific to Wuhan. The first factor, it is a Chinese factor, Chinese culture, which is the food they eat. The food they eat, it is unbelievably toxic, but they've been eating it for thousands of years now. No doubt some of them are getting harmed. They develop certain adaptation, but even with the adaptation, I think this is extremely toxic to eat all this kind of animals and junk they eat. One. Two, Wuhan is one of the most polluted city in China, and China is one of the most polluted country with India in the world. There is a study that was published about the air quality in Wuhan in 2016. In 2017, I will get back to the study. There were big manifestations by tens of thousands of people going to the street. They manifested in Wuhan against the government because they wanted to put an incineration factory, and they had to use the Chinese army to break the manifestation. It was so bad, people complaining about the pollution that they have in Wuhan. The study revealed that, published in 2016, and it is a peer-reviewed study, they looked at the air quality in Wuhan, and they found that there is two types of pollution in Wuhan. The one that is coming out of the cars, because it's highly densely populated area, Wuhan. So there's a lot of cars, and you know, with the cars, there is a particulate matter 2.5 and 10, and there is the nitrogen dioxide. And even more than the car, Wuhan is one of the most industrialized city in China. So they have a very heavy pollution from the industry. The study have revealed all this, that it is polluted. China, that Wuhan atmosphere is very polluted. And most important, the study, the pollution peak was from October to December every year. all different years. So the maximum pollution. The outbreak took place in November for them to report the first case in December. So outbreak was in the middle of the peak of the pollution. The third factor, which is unique to Wuhan, they rolled out the 5G. We all saw Wuhan. We saw Wuhan. We saw the robot in Wuhan. We saw how they built a hospital in 1,000 beds in 1 week. This could not have been done without Wuhan being an intelligent, smart city. Smart city, which means the city of Internet of Things. The robot could not function without the 5G. Now, what is the 5G? The 5G, it is a high new frequency they're using today to ensure a rapid transmission of data from the optic fiber all the way to the urban area in a wireless way. It's a very millimetric wave. It's a radio frequency, millimetric wave, very short and very fast. So the frequency is 60 gigahertz. Remember, 60 gigahertz, which means 60 billion hertz. Now, I spoke about energy today, about Allah, about electromagnetic energy. Our field of energy, our resonance as humans, and this is science, it's between 1 to 30 hertz. Mother Nature has what we call the Schumann resonance, which has been measured, 7.3 hertz. So human and Mother Nature is in perfect harmony in terms of electromagnetic resonance. Now, the people of Wuhan were subjected to billion times more their own resonance. In September, the rollout took place September, October of 2019. Now, what it does the 60 gigahertz? The problem of the 60 gigahertz, it's absorbed by oxygen, water, and plants. And it's absorbed at 98%, which means it requires a high density of antennas to ensure the rapid transmission. So if it's raining, if there are plants, it cannot travel. So they had to put like every 80 meter in a very small area, every 80 meter, they have to put an antenna or a cell receptive cells. In a way, they had to put 10,000 antennas in Wuhan. So people in Wuhan between September, October, and November during the early, they were microwaved. And we know today, and you as physicians, and this is where the physician's role, I think our role is to educate people, to go and make available and aware the knowledge, I spoke about the knowledge, the harm that electromagnetic pollution can cause impact on the human being, on the well-being of the human being. And there are two types of effects, in fact. There is what we call the thermal effect, and all the recommendations so far for the last 20, 30 years was based on thermal effect. But nothing is mentioned today about the non-thermal effect, the biological effect. The thermal effect, its application is microwave. If you all have microwave, it is the same radio frequency as our cellular, our mobile, but they use higher intensity. How? They use higher intensity to heat the water, so the water heat the food. This is what happened. It's as simple as this. Now with the non-thermal effect, it's an invisible effect. You don't feel it. Our cells and our biology feels it. So the people of Wuhan were exposed to food, air pollution, different kind, and electromagnetic pollution, the invisible energy. If you put them the three together at one point in time, the body is going to respond. And we know if you read the literature and thousands of publications on this issue, and probably 21, 22 reviews over the last 20, 30 years on the impact of radio frequency on the biology, negative impact on the biology. Sometimes we can use it as a positive, but in general, it's the negative impact. It shows the impact on protein, RNA, it fractures the DNA, it prevents the healing and the repair of DNA, it decreases fertility, it denatures proteins, it causes and there are people today described in the medical literature, people who are hypersensitive to electromagnetic field. They are they cannot feel it. They cannot sleep, they have headaches, and they call them crazy. So this is, it's there. So what happened is people were microwaved, and whenever a cell is damaged, because it induces, we talked about oxidative stress, it is highly associated with oxidative stress. the damage that it causes within the cell, it causes waste product. And the cell for it, either there is apoptosis, immediate death, or if there is no death, the cell tries to recover by wrapping this waste product with an envelope that is similar to its own envelope and is created outside. So if you take today what's so-called exosome and the particles that are telling us that this is a virus, first it is 1,000 times smaller than the tip of the pen. It's 100 nanometers, 0.1 micron. If you take so-called exosome, we know how to isolate exosomes. We know how to measure exosome. We know how to analyze exosome today, no doubt. And you take the virus, same shape, same size, same cargo. So maybe the virus that are telling us the virus, it is something our body, the human body had produced and became a human antigen or an animal antigen. They told us about the bat, that the bat, this is coming from the bat because they eat bat. No, 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 no. What is the bat? Do you know what the bat is? The bat is the only flying mammal. The pangolin, it is another mammal. So exposure to mammals to such electromagnetic intoxication will cause the same response at the biological level. The virus that they told us this is a virus has 85% similarity with the one that found on the bat. There's 500 types of coronavirus. They isolate from the bat. So it's not because they eat the bat, because the bat and the human were exposed at the same, so they produce the same waste product and the same antigen. And this antigen, how it spread? We know during summer, during spring, we have pollen, no? We have pollen. We develop allergy to pollen, many of us. Why? Because this is a vegetal antigen that we inhale and it creates, an allergic reaction within us. It's benign because it comes from loving Mother Nature, because Mother Nature is love, remember. Here now, we have an animal antigen, we have a human antigen, that contain RNA, DNA with the envelope, because the envelope of the virus, they told us was it's phospholipid. It's exactly the same as our membrane. That's why we have to wash our hands. The soap eliminates not eliminate the virus, it pushes the virus, it does not kill. That's why it's so dangerous to use, the sanitizer, because it destroys the good bacteria. We go back to the microbiota. So now we are sharing what happened today, in fact. It is this human antigen that is shared all over the world. It started in Wuhan, and then it spread all over the world. Something very important happened in Italy. Remember Italy? Where it started? It started in the north of Italy, where? In Milano. Exactly the same situation as in Wuhan. Milano is the most polluted city, and there are papers to show the pollution associated with the COVID, increase in the risk of COVID. In the north of Milano is one of the most polluted city, and also polluted city with the 5G, because Europeans have been starting now for the last maybe 1.5 years, they rolled out the 5G. So you see, it is, and if you look at the mortality, in fact, it is Europe and the USA, where the two areas, the highly developed countries, where they have rolled out the 5G. Even within the USA, there are studies to show in the states where there were 5G, the mortality was higher, the rate of infection was higher. So now what we're doing, in fact, we're sharing an antigen, animal and the human antigen that originated from China. And probably this is one of the reasons why we don't have this high mortality in the Far East, in China or Japan or South Korea. It started over there because probably this is an Oriental antigen. And we know for people who work in transplantation, when you have HLA similarity, you require less immunosuppression. You don't need, there's no rejection. So now what we are sharing as a human antigen all over the world, the exosome, what it comes, exosome, it is something that goes in, like they're telling us the virus. It can only survive at the expense of the genome. So it has to enter the genome, and that's what, in fact, the exosome does. It uses the genome, it multiply, and then get out. It get in with a specific genome, and get out with a different genome because it got a chunk from the genome. That's why there is this rapid mutation. They call it mutation, but in fact, it is we're sharing each other RNA and DNA. And certainly, there are sensitivity more in different places than others. Now, we go down to the vaccine. So in fact, it is an allosensitization. And if you look, there are several papers on the retrovirus and allosensitization that maybe retrovirus and exosomes we're talking the same way, they function the same way, and they act the same way. Now, we're talking, okay, let's look at the herd immunity without going into further detail because it takes a long time to. There's no herd immunity, which confirmed the allosensitization. Like when you have cellular rejection, you don't have antibodies. It's only when it is a humoral antibody that you develop antibody. So you can, and you give corticotherapy, whoop, and you resolve, then it's okay. So the cellular, the herd immunity, there are 4 studies now published on herd immunity. Spain, there is in Spain, in Brazil, in Switzerland, and in the USA. The maximum they reach, it is between 1 to 9%, and usually in a highly infected areas. So there's no herd immunity. So you have this monster that is dead, that is ultra microscopic, that you cannot see, that is going around killing people, and yet you cannot isolate it from any of the cadavers that they died. It's not isolated yet, because if it's so easy, then you should isolate every person who died from COVID. They should isolate. They take the virus from and culture. They're not able to do this. So there is something that is causing the death. Who is dying? We talked about it. The people who, the highest risks, the elderly people, the NCD people, the stressed people, the people who are afraid, the people who have weak immunity. So how I'm going to immunize, and this will bring me to the vaccine, against something that I don't know what it is. And there are 4 studies today on the vaccine. UK, USA, Russia, and China. These are the 4 countries where we have published in Lancet and New England Journal of Medicine. 3 in the Lancet and 1 in the Journal of Medicine. They all show you that they give the vaccine? MicroRNA. They're injecting exosomes. This is a vaccine. And DNA. So they're injecting genetic material in people. Who are the volunteers? The average age of the volunteer is between 25 to 35. These are the ones who are the least risky for them to die from the virus. No, if you want to have a vaccine, see how it works. It functions in the elderly people. So they're looking for cellular immunity and from antibody. They've shown, all of them, they showed that there is antibody within 2 or 3 weeks after the injection. I won't go through the different protocols. But we don't know if these antibodies now, if they are the right antibodies, if they are protective, if they last long, and if they last long and we are exposed the second time to the virus, whether this could cause harm or not, because in the animal experimentation, they can cause harm and worsen the response to a second exposure. So now we're talking about a vaccine, and we're investing into a vaccine to protect us against a monster we cannot see. We don't know what it is. We don't know how the antibody, there is no herd immunity, and yet you want to create an immunity with the vaccine. To me, there are big questions. And as a scientist, I don't have answers, but there's something fishy.
So the answer from your perspective is clear. You are not believing in vaccine.
Personally, I would not receive the vaccine.
Yeah, okay. So
I think it's very dangerous too. They're doing something, I don't know what it is. Not only this, and you see people like Bill Gates writing articles in the New England Journal of Medicine and in the Lancet. It's like me writing something in the Microsoft. I don't know anything about Microsoft, but I know something about medicine. So there is a big thing, and you see the big pharma. You know about the paper that was withdrawn from the Lancet, attacking the hydroxychloroquine. Didier Raoult in France, which I think probably one of the scientists and the most eloquent virologists in the world that is doing a serious work on he's attacked by pharma company and big establishment. See, so, and they had to withdraw the paper, they had to retract the paper. Look, if you look at the number of publications today, how it's happening, you know, on the corona, you know, usually, you know, we all published. You submit a paper, sometimes it takes 2 years to publish the paper. Now you publish, you submit, within 4 days, the paper is accepted. No, nothing. And you see contradiction, and that's what's scaring people and scaring us, because there's so many contradictory messages every day comes out. And then you have one message and then the opposite. How can you believe anymore? This is create a state of uncertainty, lack of trust, fear, anxiety, stress. See, this is what's going on today.
So I think we talk about something fishy regarding the vaccine, which I believe so. And also there is something fishy regarding the nature of this infecting agent. So we go back to our nature, to our body, to our soul, to our mind. Thank you very much.
Okay, Professor Antoine Barbari, I like your way of discussion.
I hope this could be a subject of, if you want, I can share this with you, because I have a lot of, you know, I've been for the last 7 months, I've been working on this to accumulate as many scientific evidence as possible to show a different perspective of what's going on today in the world.
But I don't believe 100% in the theory of conspiracy that you just explained, but it is very restricted ideas, and we should wait until we have evidence. So long as there are many contradictory issues, this means that the fact is not yet available. So we are waiting for the future to know what will, but we agree with all what you mentioned in the positive mind, practicing exercise, intermittent fasting, stopping smoking, healthy life. All these are, I think they are essential, because this is what we live in all these positive attitudes in our life. If you allow me in a minute, I'm going to share just the 2 slides. We enjoyed your presence with us. You eliminated our mind. You are completely different from the style that we are acquainted to have. So this is the certificate of appreciation from the Egyptian Society of Nephrology and Transplantation Continuous Medical Education chapter. And we are proud that we have Professor Maya Hassaballah, the President-elect of SNP, to share us this live. Thank you very much, Professor Antoine Barbari, for your excellent thoughts and the presentation. Also, I'd like to thank Professor Prof for sharing and for his presence. This equals, for me at least, a lot. Thank you very much, Professor Prof. Thank you, Professor Antoine. I'm leaving the mic to Professor Antoine for the last statement.
Well, it was a pleasure always, you know, to be with you, Hussein. And I'm honored that you know, by all this recognition, and I want to thank you for this kind invitation. And I'll be more than happy in the future also to participate. And always, as we said, we need to share, we need to cooperate. This is part of the law of Mother Nature. We need to help each other. We need to be in perfect solidarity and try to bring as much information, good information, to enlighten people, so people can understand what's going on and can make the right decision away from fear, away from panic, and away from anxiety. Again, thank you. Thank you for all the attention, for being patient.
Professor May, so long as she is in the camera, I'd like to hear from Professor May concluding statement.
We are looking forward, Professor Antoine, for the next series. We really want to hear about it, and we want to listen more to your presentations. And we thank you very much for this beautiful evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor May. I'd like to thank all attendees, all my professors from Arab world, Professor Ed Saeed, Professor Faisal Shaheen, and all my colleagues from Egypt and from UK. Thank you very much. And the video will be uploaded tomorrow morning, inshallah. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hassan. Thank you.
Hoping to see you, Professor Antoine, in the next couple of months to learn from your perspectives a lot, because as I mentioned in the beginning, you are really a philosopher, not a regular teacher. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you. Thank you.